If you're watching this, you are in a journey to the MMORPG that we are developing, and well, good news, because we are reaching a point that is almost ready to start writing the graphic content, the part that everyone wants to see. So stay tuned for that, and if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe so you're not gonna lose any updates. Remember, I'm doing daily updates on this MMORPG, so that's fun, okay? And of course, I'm teaching as much as I can, so you can hopefully learn something new and creating your online projects. So in the last video, we did a lot of stuff, but we did not have anything running in the end of the video. So this is my point today. Today I need to make something work, something running, okay? And something that we did in the last video is this client status here. So we have the waiting, the invalid, the valid, and the logged. And this is very important because we need to start reading the message in the server, at least according to this state. Because if the player is not logged, it doesn't make sense to process message that only that the player will only send after the logging. For example, it doesn't make sense that if the player is not logged to process player input and attack message and stuff like that. So we need to start validating this kind of stuff. Okay, so the first thing is like here in the logging flow, the only messages that we're gonna process in the beginning while the player is waiting is the hello and the validate output. Anything other than that we don't want to do. So I'm gonna put this inside a tab. I'm gonna do if self.security status equals to C status waiting. So if the player is waiting, then it's good to log to process those messages. And I'm gonna put an else here as well, because if the message that the player sends to the server is not hello or validate output and the status is waiting, we don't want to process anything else. So if it's else, I literally break this while loop. And I know you may think, oh, but there's like more than one message in the same package. Yes, I know, not in the package, I don't know the more than one message here, I know, but honestly, I don't care. I literally break this stuff, it's okay. So in the next step, that is basically the player is valid, but it's not logged in. The only stuff that I'm worried about, so in this next step, is the log in part. So the login or the login create. So I'm gonna put this in another if self.security status is C status valid, then I'm gonna do this. And again, else, if it's not this, I'm not gonna process anything else. So if you connect to the server and you validate yourself, then the next thing that you need to do, you must do, is log in. So you need to send a login or a login create message. If it's not that, I don't care, okay? I need to do a leaf here. And then, once you are logged in, and by the way, if this, I need to change this. We don't have like anything to change this to the next step. But again, once you are logged in, I'm gonna do another leaf here to the in-game flow. That is the rest, literally everything else, okay? So a leaf. Security status is C status logged. The player is logged, and then he can literally do everything that he wants related to the game itself. And again, I need to put an else here. And why I'm doing this else here, this is important to avoid corrupted data. Okay, there's a chance of this data being corrupted, so I want to put an else here. Or the different versions of clients trying to communicate with a header that doesn't exist. That's why I need to put an else here that you're gonna break everything, break the while loop, and that makes sense, because if you don't know like the message, you can't jump to the next message. It doesn't make sense. Okay, So I have the waiting, which is the initial state, and then I send this to valid or invalid. Oh, by the way, I need to put a final else here. Else, I'm gonna do, I also have to break this. Security status is probably invalid. Okay, so we need to define those three status of the player and act accordingly. Okay, good. Now in the server, in the client, I'm sorry, we need to track as well if the player is connected, if the player is logged in or not. Okay, we need to do this. It's important. So I'm gonna do this first. It's the first very important message that we can do. So I'm gonna create two variables here. The first one, I'm gonna leave this public. Honestly, no, I'm gonna make it private. Validated equals to false because, oops, by default, and logged equals to false as well. Okay, and this is important. We need to keep track if the player is validated and if the player is logged in. Okay. Because otherwise it doesn't make sense to send random message. I'm gonna leave that to the player because I'm not in the send message. I'm not gonna validate a hey, you're not logged in, don't send this specific message. I'm gonna let the player send whatever he wants, the client actually, and because the server is gonna avoid that, we're gonna block that. And what I'm gonna do is when a player receives the validate in, actually, this is the access denied. It's gonna shut down everything. But here is the login credentials. Once the player receives the login credentials, it means that the validated self.validated is true. Okay, simple, very simple, because it validates the player. Okay, and once the player is validated but not logged in, we need to create we need to log this stuff. Okay, but I'm not gonna worry about that, not yet. And in the bad login, nothing. Bad create, nothing as well. Login success, well then in this case I'm gonna do login logged equals to true. Okay, so I'm gonna have to create two variables here as well, two getters. I'm gonna do like self is validated, then I'm gonna return self dot validated, and I'm gonna do delf is logged, gonna return self dot logged. Here you go. So basically here what I'm doing is I need a variable to check if the user is logged or if the user is validated, because I'm gonna send messages accordingly. Okay, and I also need a login message, a login input here to the client, so we can send this to the server. So I'm gonna create this def login self user. I'm gonna pass a string and a password. I'm gonna pass a string as well, don't judge me. And this, you're basically gonna send a message, so self.send message, and it will send, where is this, the client login. Okay, and then we need to check here in the payload what do we need to send. It's simple. So common dot login plus common string 2 bytes, and I'm gonna pass the string, which is the user, plus the same thing except the password. Here you go. So this is the login method, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the login create. But this time I'm gonna need to pass the user, the password, and the email of the user. and I need another line here. Here we go. So I'm passing the user. You'll be able to do this kind of stuff, but this is something important. If not self.is validated or self.is logged, I'm gonna return, because I don't want my player to attempt to log in if it's not validated or if the player is already logged, because well, that's not gonna work, okay, at all. You also have this check here in the client handle, if you remember, okay. So I have the login and the login create methods here, and the start, the shutdown. Let me think. Well, I'll go ahead here and in the test game, I will write some code to allow me as the tester to try to log in or to create an account. And the last thing that we're gonna do in this video after that is to make the server actually handle like account creator, okay? Account creation, I'm sorry. So let's go ahead and do it. So I think it may work right now. What I did is in my test game, I created like I splitted the input from the user by white spaces, and I check it if the first word is login or create, and then I attempted to log in and to create using the client. And in the server side, well, I'm a very good server because I don't even verify. I just say, oh, you asked for login, you asked to create an account. That's good. You can do it and you are logged. So I changed the status to logged and send back to the client the login success here. So if you go ahead in the login flow, there's three options when the server receives either the login or the login create. The first option is a bad login, the second option is a bad create, and the third option is the login success. They're gonna say, hey, it works and here's your ID, okay? So we need to, we also need to check to receive the ID in the client. So I'll go ahead here. I already have the ID here. I just need to like store this somewhere. So I'm gonna create another variable self.myID equals to -1 by default, and I may have like a property that is a getter for the ID as well. It's important. Return self.myID. Here we go. So now my login success, this ID I need to define here. So self my ID equals to ID, because this is like how you keep track of yourself connected in the server. Okay, very important to have the ID. And well, let's attempt to do this. Let's attempt to launch the server. It's working. Then I'm gonna try to launch the client, and if everything works, I forgot to validate, I guess. I need to send hello. No. Let me shut down the server as well, because I am creating the client here. Where's the client? Where's the client? I'm creating the client here, but I'm not validating. So when I start the client, the first thing that I need to do after this, after everything working, is to self.send a message saying hello. So common.hello to say that, hey, I'm connected. Please send me the key so I can validate. Because if you remember correctly, this send message here to the server, the client handle in the server, you're gonna receive this in the hello, and it's gonna send the validate in, and the user, the client, you're gonna send the validate out with the encrypted message, and then you're gonna start doing the rest. So let me actually double check if yes, it's sending the message. So let me do it. Okay, I'm gonna run it again. It's working, and I'm gonna run this again. Here we go. the user, the client, sends to the server a message called hello, and then the server answers the user with the message validate in, and this is the random string that I was talking about. Okay, so this is the random string that we generated, and the client, if you see here, he sends like the correct. Oh my god, I can't zoom in and out this. It's annoying. Sends the correct output to the server, because the server sends the login credential. So the server say, hey, you're good. Please give me your login credentials. And probably if I go to the message, I have like 4 new messages in the server. And if I go to log, you can see here that this connection sends a new message, and the message is hello. And then he sends another message. That is the validate output. That is basically the client sending the decrypted message to say, hey, I am a valid client. And then the client asked for the credentials. So I'm going to try to log in. It doesn't matter, as I said, so it should work. Potato and horse. So this is the user and the password. So I sent, and the user and the server answered, hey, login success, you're good to go. Okay, so probably if I go ahead here, I have 2 messages, and the client sends the message here, and here's the final message, login, potato and horse, and now it's connected. And if I attempt to send any message right now, it's gonna receive a global message. Here we go, message received global. This is the message. In other words, we have this kind of working. We have the connection, the validation, and the login kind of working. I said kinda because we don't have an actual login at the moment. We just say, hey, you're good to go. Go ahead and do everything you want. Okay, so we need to change that, of course. But there's something. The login success. It's sending the, oh, it's okay, it's the ID. So let me try to connect another server, because, well, that's where the fun begins, right? So it asked for the login credentials here. So in other words, it's okay. But let me just make a test. I will send a random message to see if this other client receives. I send a random message, and you can see here that the server discarded this message because I'm not logged in. Okay, so I can literally try to send any message that I want, and it will not gonna receive. If I guess that I think that if I send a message here, this not logged character that we're gonna receive, I guess. So let me do a test. Yes, this is not what we want, folks. We definitely don't want to do this. It's something that we need to figure out. We need to fix today. But let me try to create another account. Create. And again, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter. So user it, password doesn't, email matter. It created login success, and my ID is now 1. So now if I try to send the same message, it sends to the other user. Okay, let me keep this, and I'm gonna try to log in again. So it asked me for the credentials. Let me do login, B, doesn't matter, login success, and I have another ID. Awesome, just like we can expect. So I'm gonna keep from buff, and I'm gonna do that validation before sending the message to the players to say, because I need to make sure that this client is connected. Okay, so let me do like def is logged, and I return, do I have this already? No. Return self security status equals to C status logged. Okay, because I need in my server, in my game server, when I send the broadcast message, where's the broadcast? Send message broadcast. First I need to do if con.is logged, then I need to send a message, because if the connection is not logged in, I'm not gonna send any message to it. Okay, very important, very, very important. So let me try it again to do the same thing. So I'm opening the server, I'm opening client 1, I'm logged in, so login, potato test, success, and then I'm gonna try to log the second client, and well, I'm not logged, so if I send a message, it is gonna be ignored. But if I send a message here, it should work. I'm sending the message, but this client is not logged in. Client is not receiving the message. Okay, all good. So let me keep this and keep this as well. I'm clear. I have a lot of messages, show logs. Here you go, a bunch of new messages here, but I'm gonna keep this server as well. Almost done, right? I think we need to make in this video the login part. And I know that someone will gonna hate me because I'm doing like password as a string. I know that. Don't hate me. I'm keeping stuff simple, okay? I'm keeping stuff simple again. It's important. Keep it simple. Let me do it. Let me create the login, and I want to do the login in the server side. Okay, in the server application, I want to have like a list of of accounts, because I want to save that to disk eventually, and I want to log in using a user, okay, and a password and an email and stuff like that. So first things first, let me create here a new client. I'm gonna write the code and then I'm gonna time lapse it and then I'm gonna explain, okay? But to be very direct here, I need to have a class to store the client data, the username, the email, the password, and then the other like players specific stuff like the position and so on. And then I need to store it in the server. And when a client attempts to connect, I want to have like two methods here in the server called. I'll create this method first. Login, user as a string and password as another string, and it's gonna return boolean unsuccess. Okay, I'm gonna do false by default, and I will also create a login create here in the server that are gonna receive the email as well, and again you're gonna return true or false if I succeeded to create an account. Okay, so I need to have those variables here, and I need to store the connected clients in a list here in the server. And I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna time lapse it, and then I'm gonna explain everything. I think we finished it, and I'm touching like 15 minutes here of work today, so it's almost an hour but not an hour, and I finally have everything working, and I'm gonna show you the usability first. Actually, let me show how it's implemented, okay, because you already know the usability. I created two methods here, the login and the login create, and it basically receives a user and a password, and the create receives a user, a password, and an email, and it's gonna return an account if on success or no on failure, and the integer representing the error message like, hey, wrong password, wrong email, wrong anything. So it's gonna return that. And for that, I created two new stuff. I created an account and I created an account manager. The account manager. And by the way, before I show that to you, this login created is located inside my game server. It's imported, and the client handle in the login functions. Where's the login? Here we go. In the login header, it's gonna call the server login using username and password, and if the account is not known, in other words, if it not failed, I'm sorry, to connect to login, it's gonna do what we was already doing it, and also set an ID to that account. But if it fails, in other words, if the account is known, it's gonna answer the bad login with the error message. Okay, and that's the same for the login create basically. So now let's figure out what we did. First thing, is I created an account, and an account is simply a class that are going to receive the user, the password, email, and two flags here to indicate if the user is logged in, is currently logged, and to indicate the ID. We're going to do something else later on here, but for now I'm going to keep it as simple as this. The account manager is complicated. It's a little bit complicated, but it's not a lot. You have the common and the account. I'm importing common here because I already defined it in the common some error messages from the login. So it's okay, all good, but wrong user, wrong password, user already exists, email already exists, invalid email or other stuff. So I already defined that in the common. And the account manager, it stores a log for the data, of course, a list with all the accounts and some dictionaries to access this list by username, by email, and by ID. So those three dictionaries are basically the same stuff. They store the same data than this list, but it's gonna provide fast access to the username, okay, to the account table, okay. I have some basic user exist and email exist methods that you're basically gonna check if the username is in use and stuff like that. And the log in and log out methods. The login is very simple and straightforward. You're gonna try to see if the user exists and if the password is the same. I'm literally comparing password like that. I know, but don't worry, okay? don't worry. And I have a create account that is basically the same thing, and I'm just doing some weird validation here to see at least if the email that the user passed have an at and a dot, because if it doesn't, well, it's probably not an email, so I'm just returning email invalid here. And I'm creating the stuff and setting ID basically like that. That's basically it, everything that I'm doing here in this account manager, okay? And I'm using it because of the lock. I don't want to like do more complex, add more complexity to the server, okay? Something that I forgot to do is that in a client handle, the shutdown, where's the shutdown? Where's the shutdown? That I'm closing the connection, I basically need to log out. It's important to do that. Actually, let me do that in the game server. I'll check if I have an ID. So if self dot account, if I have an account, and then I'm gonna do self dot server dot account manager dot log out, and then I'm gonna do self dot account dot user. Here we go. And I will call shutdown in the end of this run method. I think it's not a problem to call shutdown here as well. So this is basically what I'm doing, and of course I need to set this self to the account to known. I think it's worth doing it. Basically this is everything that I'm doing, and if I launch the server, it's working. And if I create, like if I log in, if I try to log in actually with a username that doesn't exist, so let me log in to potato and the password is 123. You can see bad login, so it's not logged. I can send message and it's not gonna work and not gonna be propagated because of bad login, and the error message is 1. And if you go ahead here in the common, you're gonna see that error message is 1 is wrong username, because of course I don't have any user called potato. There's no username like that. So what I can do is create an account. So let me create the username called potato, password 123, and the email, let me do a wrong email address. Let me do like, this is an email address. Bad create 5. Bad create 5. 5 means email invalid. So let me do it properly this time. So let me create potato@mail.com. Login success. So now I'm logged in. If I type anything, I can see a message global because I sent that, and it's working. It's logged in. The server, it's finally connecting myself. So if I quit and if I go again and try to log in, now with potato, but let me put a wrong password like 456. Bad login 2, the message is wrong password. All good. But let me try it again, but 1, 2, 3. Login success. It's working, my ID is now 1. So that's super cool. And something that's interesting is like I cannot, let me keep this, and let me try to create another account with the name Teres, password 59, okay, and the same username, the same email, so potato@mail.com. Bad create 4 because email already exists. Let me do it again with another email, but now with the same username, potato. Bad create 3, account user already exists. Okay, so this is the basics. What it's left for us to do is to avoid like 2 characters from logging in the same time. This is very important. I don't want to have two users with the same account connected. So I'm gonna do this right now. Let me time lapse it real quick. Alright, so I do have here, I finished that. I'm basically checking if the player is logged in, and if you go ahead here, I created an account with the username potato, password 123, and this email, and login success. In other words, I can log to the game, and then I'm gonna try to log in to the same account. So I'm running another test game, and then I'm gonna type login potato 123, and you can see bad login 6, and the 6 means account already logged. And this is important. Something important is I'm not checking for the password unless the account is not logged in. Okay, so before checking the password, I'm returning that error just to prevent some stuff. So let me keep this. So I'm kidding, and then I'm gonna try again to log in, and you can see login success 2 because this first player disconnected. Okay, let me keep this. And I think that's it for this video, folks. An hour, exactly an hour of work today, and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or comment, leave in the comments, because I'm gonna try to answer as fast as possible. And I see you in the next video. We are getting closer, right? I see you in the next video.